Welcome to the Walk-Off. I'm your host, Adam Mack. Scott Belford is away today. Well, the lockout is official, we're locked out, and things do not look good. It's going to be a bit of a shorter episode today, but I did want to come on here and just stick to the schedule, and there are a few things I did want to cover. I'm going to give you a crazy contract offer for Vlad Jr. that I think actually makes sense. I'm going to give you my thoughts on the lockout and when it might end. But first, I got to promote this Sunday's episode of Long Toss. So, for those of you that haven't seen it yet, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, I go live with a few other baseball creators, content creators from TikTok, YouTube, across the gamut, really. And we're going to be joined by Blue Jays prospect catcher Chris Beck. So, that's going to be a fun one this Sunday. Get your comments and questions in the Discord. Send us stuff on Instagram as you always do, or Twitter, wherever you might do it. Discord is open, by the way. There is a link in the show notes, whether you're listening on iTunes or watching here on YouTube. Click that link, join the Discord, completely free. Get your questions, comments in for Chris Beck. Anything you want us to cover on the Long Toss. Doesn't have to be baseball related. That Sunday night show is a bit of a more open format, so if you want us to talk about the new Batman movie or what's going on in Ukraine, rather stick to Batman, but let us know. Also, our Patreon is now live, so $4 a month, or there is a premium tier that gets you a free coffee mug, so how about that? Patreon's a lot of fun though, for anybody looking for a little bit of extra baseball content to help get them through the lockout. Scott and I are doing monthly movie reviews. So far we've done Bull Durham. The review for that one is actually live on YouTube for free right now as a free preview of kind of what we're doing. We've done Bull Durham. We've done Mr. Baseball was our movie review for January. In February we did Major League, the classic there with Charlie Sheen. And then this month in March we are doing A League of Their Own, the Tom Hanks, Gina Davis classic. So that'll be a good one to look forward to as well. Patreon is good and rolling. All right, so next on the docket here, I know a lot of you are new to the channel and only found us either in November or later as the off season kind of got kicked off. And you may have heard us mention on occasions we do live streams every single Tuesday during the season. So where does that leave us with the lockout? Well, we are going to continue that, lockout or not. I guess once April rolls around, we are going to be following the AAA affiliate for the Blue Jays, the Buffalo Bison. So Scott and I have both decided that we are going to invest in a minor league baseball TV subscription, and we are going to be watching Buffalo Bison game. So come hang out with us. It's a good time. I think those games are typically shorter than major league games anyways, so it'll be good. It'll be a little bit of baseball anyways to keep you going through the lockout. So it'll be fun to kind of catch up with some of these prospects on the cusp, guys like Jordan Groshans, Kyle Johnston, Joey Murray, I think Gabriel Moreno, but he might be on the 40-man, so he might not be eligible to play in AAA this year. Either way, it'll be something. Got to do something, right? So here we are. All right, so let's dive into it now. Vlad Guerrero Jr. contract extension. So let's talk that. Let's talk why these numbers that I'm about to say are pretty scary, pretty big. But I think they are honestly the starting point for negotiations. We did just see Juan Soto kind of came out in a statement that he rejected the Nationals' offer of $350 million over 13 years. That was a massive deal that was rejected. It sounds like a lot of money, and it is. But keep in mind, 3 years of team arbitration are left before he hits free agency. and he'll be 26 when he hits free agency. So I do have a few numbers here. These projections come in from, I guess these are mostly speculation, but it's speculation by industry experts. So it's not just me pulling numbers completely out of my butt here. But this kind of helps frame why Juan Soto turned that offer down. And then with that context in mind, we're going to look at Vladdy, and we're going to see exactly why 350 over 13 years would be a pretty big slap in the face to Vlad Jr. So let's have a look here. So the 3 years that Juan Soto has left in arbitration, he's expected to make $16 million in his first year, $23 million in arbitration in his second year, and $30 million in his final year of arbitration. Then he becomes a free agent. So that's $69 million over the next 3 years, which would be encapsulated in that 350 over 13, right? So if you look at it that way, it's not actually a 350 over 13 year offer. It's actually a 281 million offer over 10 years as an extension, right? Because 69 million, again, estimated, but he's going to get that anyways. So that's an annual average value of $28 million. Pretty low when you look at it that way. I think we all expect that once Juan Soto hits free agency at the age of 26, I believe, he's going to be looking for a contract with a AAV well over $28 million. Just as a for example, Corey Seager just left the Dodgers and signed with the Rangers for $325 million over 10. Okay, and he's 28. Corey Seager is really good shortstop, but that's 32.5 AAV. I think we can all agree that we expect Juan Soto to get at least that. And that doesn't take into account 3 years more of inflation or contract values going up on the other side of this CBA, which feels inevitable. So, again, all these numbers I'm going to get into here for Vlad are, I think, honestly, as big and as scary as they might sound, honestly, pretty conservative. So, with that in mind, let's have a look at Vladdy. Okay, so Vladdy, very similar situation to Juan Soto. He has 4 years of arbitration, though, because of when they brought him up with the service time manipulation. So he's expected to make, again, these aren't numbers that I'm taking. These are from MLB Trade Rumors and from a few other experts across the league. So the best that I can discern is that Vladdy Jr., through 4 years of arbitration, is going to make $8 million this season, $16 million the next season, $23 million in his third year, and then $30 million in his fourth year of arbitration. Now, again, that would be a record-setting deal. Mookie Betts has the record right now at $27 million in his final year of arbitration. But that was in 2020, and I think we can all agree that by 2026, that it's not that far-fetched for someone of Vlad's ilk to have pushed that up $3 million. So I think that those are pretty fair, pretty reasonable and conservative figures. So if we add all that up, that's $77 million over the next 4 years. Okay, so now we're looking at 4 years, $77 million, and he's going to be 26 by the time he gets to free agency. Okay, so we build that into a similar deal structure like we were looking at for Juan Soto. Right, now let's look if we go 13 years in free agency. 13 years in free agency. So let's take Corey Seager's AAV, and he was 28 when he hit free agency. Vladdy's only going to be 26. Okay, so a lot younger. Plus, again, we have to speculate on market value just kind of going up across the board, but I don't even want to do that. Let's just say numbers don't go up. Let's say collective bargaining, the tax doesn't go up, inflation doesn't happen. So let's just speculate today's market value stays the same. So let's take that annual average value from, and again, I'm sorry if this is tough to follow, but let's take Corey Seager's AAV, 32.5 million. So as a 26-year-old, let's give Vladdy that 13-year extension, which takes him to his 39 season, his 39-year-old season. So 32.5 times 13 years. That's $422.5 million. That's the kind of contract that he can expect to make, I think, realistically and honestly, probably conservatively, when he hits free agency at 26 years old. So $32.5 million over 13 years. That's a $422.5 million contract. If we add that to the $77 million that he's going to get in the arbitration years anyways, that's $499.5 million over 17 years. That's $500 million over 17 years. 500 million over 17 years, I think, is the starting point for negotiations with Vlad. 17 years is a big deal. That's a long commitment. That's a long commitment. $500 million, a lot of money. I think that's conservatively where those numbers start. We are going to see Juan Soto hit that point a year before Vladdy, so the numbers could honestly even be higher. If Juan Soto does go the free agency route and 3 years from now hits free agency, we could be looking at that 32.5 AAV, and maybe it's 35 now over 13 years. Again, this is why I think conservatively, that's where this contract starts. That's a contract you sign today at today's market value. That's with no inflation projections or anything like that. Obviously, that's a huge commitment and scary, right? Injuries can happen. He's still young. We don't know what the foreseeable future holds. I think that's what Vladdy is going to want as a starting offer, is something in that range. Do the Blue Jays really want to do that, though? Do they want to go down that road, make that kind of a commitment to make him a Blue Jay for life? Maybe, maybe not. I think if they do go with again, this is crazy to even say, a 17-year contract for Vlad Jr., I think there's no way they do that without having an off-ramp, an exit out of there. And I think that the time that the off-ramp comes is at year 7. So you get a team option, a team opt-out at 7 years. At 7 years, Vladdy will be 29 years old, entering free agency. And I think that is the point where they have to pull the trigger and either commit for the next 10 and go, yeah, this is a deal that we're happy with and we want to commit to it. Or Vlad's been injured for the last 5-6 years, and now this deal is looking really bad and the team wants out. So I think 7 years, he gets $200 million right off the top for the 7 years he just did, and now we're at the point where the team can get out. It doesn't cripple a franchise for another decade, so it does protect the team if the deal looks bad, but it also protects Vladdy because it does allow him that one last shot at a big long-term deal, as he will just be a 29-year-old free agent after 7 years. So I think a team opt-out after 7 years is reasonable and fair. And I think it is a team-only opt-out. I don't think the player has an opt-out if we're going with full, fair market value, right? If we're going $500 million over 17 years, we're giving Vladdy the full value. There's no discount other than the discount of, we don't know what inflation is going to be like 17 years from now. We don't know what inflation is going to be like with the CBA, hopefully getting reworked, right? If that competitive balance tax, we see that threshold really escalate or jump up 50, $60 million. And again, after 7 years, we're going to be at the point where we're seeing another collective bargaining agreement, right? So we could see that tax threshold jump up another 50 million, right? Like we could be into the 300 millions for team total salaries. So again, 500 million over 17 years is crazy to say, but I think conservatively that's fair for both sides, as long as we do have that opt out after 7 years. And I think 7 years is the perfect time to do it. Protects both sides. I think alternatively to that is we just go with a 7-year contract and we say, Vladdy, we're going to just lock you in for 7 years. We don't want to lose you when you're 26. But we can't commit to you long term. So I think there is a 7-year option, which would be in like the $200 million range, which is still, again, mega dollars, right? We're still in that 30 million a year annual average salary. Either way, I think the financial breakdown will be a masterclass in contract negotiations. Shapiro and Atkins are elite when it comes to this sort of stuff. It's those finer details that, honestly, I know not everybody's a big fan of Shapiro and Atkins, but Scott and I could speak for Scott here. I know we're both big believers in this front office. We trust what they're up to. I don't think they've really made one big glaring misstep in their time in Toronto. Let's look at the Jose Barrios contract as an example. He does have an opt-out in his, but his opt-out lines up with the end of George Springer's contract, which protects the team, right? Because if he does leave, if he opts out, with George Springer coming off the books, there's an extra $22 million in spending that's coming off the books, right? So there will be lots of money available to replace Barrios if Barrios does decide to leave. Speaking of George Springer, looking at his contract, his contract was 6 years. Every single year was $22 million, except for this season. The 2022 season, which we're currently missing, is actually worth $28 million. So this is his 32-year-old season, if I'm correct about that. He's older than he was last year. So why is this season worth $28 million when last year was only worth $22 million? I think this is one of those things where Shapiro and Atkins looked at it and they said, you know what? There's a chance in 2022 that we miss games or we miss a whole season. Is it crazy to think that the most expensive season happened to line up with the season that might not happen at all? If the Jays don't play this year, that's $28 million off the books that they don't have to play. Again, maybe I'm giving them too much credit. Maybe there's other reasons, but it's just interesting when you look at his contract and year 1, $22 million, year 3, 4, 5, and 6, $22 million. But year number 2, the year where there's a lockout, it's $28 million. It's just, again, I think this is a pretty creative front office. And I think they're going to get a deal done with Vladdy. It's crazy to think that it might be 17 years long. It's crazy to think that it might be $500 million. But I think anything short of that, I don't think Vladdy's really going to give him the time of the day. And we saw it with Juan Soto. I mean, there is the thought of a 26-year-old superstar hitting the free agent market and the number of suitors. Like, there are 29 teams in the league who would open up their checkbook. Well, maybe not 29. I mean, we do have the Rays. we do have a few small market teams maybe who wouldn't be in on a Vlad Jr. But there's at least 20 teams who would be in on a 26-year-old mega superstar. We're going to see it with Juan Soto if the Nationals can't get their act together and offer him something realistic in the next 2 or 3 years. But yeah, just wild to think about. All right, let's have a look at the lockout now. First 2 series of the year have been canceled. I think that's fair. I don't expect that we're going to see month after month getting wiped out in chunks. I think it's going to just continually be a rolling of, every Sunday, Manfred is announcing, okay, we've canceled another 2 series. We've canceled another week. Okay, we've canceled another 2 series. I don't think we're going to see 1 month chunks getting canceled. That being said, I think the real deadline to get something done is 60 games. I hate to say it. We did see it during the COVID season. 60 games plus playoffs. That's a legitimate season. I don't think either side wants to lose the whole season. I think both sides agree we need a World Series. We need a real season. But now that we're at the point where we've already lost 6 games, so we're down to 156. What's really the difference from like a semantics, technical standpoint? What's the difference between playing 140 games and playing 60 games? Right? Those are both shortened seasons. When we look back at the record books 30 years from now, 2022 is going to go down as a quote-unquote shortened season. Whether that's 156 games and they get a deal done tonight, or whether that's 60 games, it's going to be some level of quote-unquote shortened season. But in 2019, they proved, or was it 2020? Man, time flies when you're having fun. They proved 60 games is enough. So I think 60 games is that cutoff that realistically is their drop dead point, their actual hardline deadline. I think both sides have their heels dug in. I think it's going to get ugly. I was reading this article from Shai Davidi and Ben Nicholson-Smith about their interaction with Ross Stripling, who said the owners were actually trying to sneak in some fine print details. Remember that last night in negotiations where it was the deadline and they stayed up until 12:30 in the morning, and then they actually extended negotiations until 5 o'clock the next day because they were so close? Well, apparently on that offer that the players received from the owners at 12:30 that night, according to Ross Stripling, there was some fine print in there that had never shown up in any of the previous offers. And I don't know. Nobody's really come out and said that that's bullshit, so I'd have to believe it's true. I mean, I don't know why he would make that up. But that's the sort of like sneaky bullshit that really breaks trust between both sides and really, if one side believes the other is trying to be shady and not negotiating in good faith, then that's such a dog shit move. I think we're back to square one. I think some of the concessions that the players maybe have made earlier after a move like that maybe get taken off the table. Maybe even the thought of expansion, going to 12 teams. Maybe that's, what? Fuck it. Let's go back to 10. Let's start there. I don't know. I think it's going to get a lot uglier before it gets any better. I think the real deadline to get a deal done is the July 4th weekend. July 4th weekend. July 4th is a Monday, so July 4th is Independence Day. That's a big deal for Americans. Big weekend to celebrate, and that falls on a Monday. So I think that Canada Day, July 1st to July 4th weekend is when we can expect real pressure to get a deal done. If they can announce one on July 3rd, Sunday night, what better way to celebrate July 4th the next day than by saying, baseball's back, baby, right? If we get a deal in place by July 4th, that still gives us the 4-week spring training, even though it'll be in the middle of the summer. But that 4-week build up to get everybody in shape so no pitchers are hurting their arms, stuff like that. And have opening day on August long weekend or whatever, August 1st. And then we have August and September, blast out 60 games and a postseason in October. I think July 4th, that's the next date. That's the real deadline, regardless of, because we're going to hear owners coming out and we're going to hear players coming out. And they're going to come up with new deadlines, artificially made ones. Don't buy into it. I mean, we might get a deal done before July 4th, but I think we need to prepare ourselves for a 60-game season and not expect real progress until late into June. I think both sides have figured that out, and I think we'd be fooling ourselves to pretend anything different. I know that's not the news you wanted to hear, but it's the news I think is what we're heading towards. So I think things are going to get ugly. I think things are going to get quiet for a bit in negotiation talks. And yeah, I think July 4th is what we're looking at. So let me know what you guys think. Yeah, Scott was away today. He'll be back next week. Thanks for putting up with my ugly mug and my mullet that I'm working on. My wife gave me the haircut here. So love everybody, ladies, gentlemen, everything in between. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you Sunday for Long Toss. Cheers.